What's the future of learning for CPAs? Two training and education experts weigh in. This is the IssuesWatch podcast. Hi, I'm Don Meyer, Chief Marketing Officer at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the IssuesWatch podcast. The COVID-19 pandemic has spurred lasting changes to how we work, learn, process information, and interact with others. Professionals everywhere are rethinking what's important to them and how they spend their time, which has major implications for training and education. Shifts in learning patterns, delivery platforms, even what motivates people to learn are just a few of the transformative changes that we've witnessed in the last 2 years. With me here today to discuss emerging trends in training and education are two experts in the field, who are also CPAs. John Higgins is the Chief Partnership Officer at CPA Crossings, an online learning provider for CPAs. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks, and good to be here.
Also with us is Dr. Kecia Williams Smith. She's an assistant professor and director of the Master of Accountancy program at North Carolina A&T State University. Welcome, Kecia.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I should probably say welcome back because you were at our convention, so I should probably say welcome back to you.
Well, it's good. At least I didn't mess up too bad. I got the chance to come back, so thank you.
Yeah, well, me too, I guess, because I guess I didn't mess up too bad either.
Exactly.
They keep asking me to do these things, so I guess I didn't mess up either. So, John, let's start with you. What changes in CPA learning patterns have you seen in the past year?
Well, as you know, we've all come through this last couple of years of the pandemic, and so what we saw during the pandemic is the acceleration of a trend that was already taking place for CPA learning, and that is a transition from in-person events to online learning. I mean, that was already taking place. We've been in the business of online learning since 2007. I've been in the business of in-person learning since the 80s. And but just since 2007, year after year, we saw pretty steady growth in the number of CPAs who wanted to get their learning online. Well, of course, when the pandemic came around, everything went online. Just it was required. I mean, we had no other choice. And so what that did is it took what I would call maybe the laggards who really didn't want to move into online learning. Well, now they were forced to learn online, and many of them found they actually like it because it has a level of convenience for them. And so now what we're seeing as we come out of the pandemic is I kind of see like two camps of people. Those who just want to be in person, want to network, want to socialize and all that. And those who say, you know what, this online is just so efficient. I can just use my time more effectively. And so it's really interesting because now you have those two different camps out there. And so as a provider of CPA learning, we have to be prepared to meet the needs of both audiences. All the providers do. And so we're seeing, and this is something I predicted a long time ago actually would happen, is that learning for CPAs would evolve to conferences would grow in popularity because people want that networking. They want those breakout sessions, the keynote speakers. And so I think conferences will continue to do well and should continue to grow in attendance. But other in-person learning, like full-day courses, half-day courses, that is clearly moving to online. And as we move into more online learning, we're seeing the learning module shortened, right? The days of 8-hour courses are kind of just going the way of the horse and buggy, and moving to 4-hour, 2-hour, 1 hour, and ultimately what we call nano short-time learning. So those are a couple of trends that we see. And another area I see a lot of growth in seems to be podcasts, just as we're doing here today. People want to listen, I think, to people talking to one another instead of just one person talking basically to a screen.
So before the pandemic, I know here at the NJCPA, we had struggled with that idea of, how much online learning do we offer? Because it's funny to think about now, but 3 years ago, it really was a challenge to figure out how much online learning to offer versus in person, because in person has been such an important part of our learning for so long. Then, as you mentioned, the pandemic forced everybody online. And how are the profession and learning providers sort of adapting to this new normal of trying to figure out, well, all right, how much in person do we do? Because that's more costly. How much in person do we do versus online? How do they figure out that balance?
Well, they're all figuring it out. They're trying to figure it out. We do a lot of work with all the state CPA associations like NJCPA, and everybody's doing a little bit different. I know some states are, for example, some associations are saying our conferences will only be in person. We're not going to simulcast them. But I can go to the state next door and they'll say, no, we're simulcasting every event we do. So we call it the hybrid, where you have some people in the room and some people online to kind of meet the two segments of the marketplace. And as a subject matter expert myself who gives a lot of presentations, I personally don't like the hybrid approach because you get two different audiences, and it's like, who do you cater to? The people in the room or the people that are remote? And I think kind of just naturally you end up catering to the people in the room because they're there in front of you and a little bit more interactive. So I think that you're seeing a lot of simulcasting and a lot, just trying to find more resources to provide online learning, whether it's live webinars or also the whole model of self-study where you can take it on demand, take the learning on demand. That offers a lot more convenience to a lot of folks.
Right. I guess the other challenge with hybrid learning is, let's be honest, even with all of the new tools available to us, it's not always a great experience for the people watching online. I mean, especially if it's like a camera in the back of the room, and it's not necessarily a great experience for your customer.
I would agree, and I think we have to figure out how to evolve to the cable news networks, right? I mean, those are professionals. They have professional broadcast studios. They have producers that are there, really making sure everything goes properly, and they have quality equipment. We haven't had to deal with that in the CPA learning market because when most of it was in person, you just made sure you had a good conference facility and a projector and a whiteboard, and you were good.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you had to just make sure that the coffee was hot and there was plenty of it, and usually people would give you good evaluations. Yeah.
Right.
So Kecia, as a professor, what do you see driving the future of higher education that you think might transfer or impact professional training and development?
Ryan, this is a perfect question because it intersects, to me, my life, being a practitioner at the regulator, I led learning, and now in the classroom. One of the things in higher ed, a lot of folks are questioning the value of higher education and why should people invest, because we know tuition has gone up. And so it comes down to the value proposition for higher education. And when you're doing that, you're really trying to articulate why should an individual come into a learning environment, pay the cost. And that's similar to what we see in the practitioner space. Why should I come to X conference and pay this cost in order to get that? So what I'm seeing in terms of trending in higher ed is something that we just heard earlier about, the delivery. We really want to make sure that people are getting value out of it and seeing more things like stackable certificates and different ways that people are getting their degrees, whether there is an online, focus. And here in higher education, we got the same disruption that everybody else did. And so it really forced us to think about what is the right model to reach the new student. The student is very diverse now. We're talking about adult learners, our traditional folks that are coming out of high school. So the value proposition is very different because you're dealing with different populations and making sure that we're not so constrained with the old way that we used to do it. Because if you think about a professor, you're thinking about someone that's standing up in front of the room and, giving all of this knowledge because they are the expert. I think the trends now are how do we make sure that what we are, giving to our students and being those experts, it is something that they can actually see a measurable relationship, a measurable difference in their life and how they're going to apply it in outside of the classroom. So I think those are some of the trends, which translates to how professional development. What are those things, skills, training sessions that there's immediate applicability and is relevant and is not something that I'm just doing just because, the university side, I have a curriculum guide, and on the, practitioner side, because I have to fulfill a certain CPE requirement. It really is something that they see that as a tangible benefit to their actual work life and in the higher ed space. It's a true benefit for what they're going out to do as they complete their education, what are they going to do, and making sure that education is relevant.
Right. So I guess there's always a certain element of compliance when it comes to education. You need certain credits in certain areas in order to graduate. You need certain credits in certain areas in order to fulfill your CPE requirement. But how do your students view learning after graduation? Are they looking to augment specific skills in order to help them in their careers?
And this is where innovation has really expanded how people can learn and how they can obtain their enhancement. I had one student that shared with me, they're like, Dr. Smith, you really love learning. I'm like, absolutely. Why would I not be in this business if I didn't enjoy learning? So trying to translate that energy and passion for being a lifelong learner, especially in our profession, is a requirement. We can't get around it. In order to keep those three letters behind our names, we have to comply with the education requirements. But getting that mindset of being a lifelong learner is helpful. And then also there's such variety in how we can get our learning. We heard earlier about podcasts. That's what we're doing. Nano learning, micro credentials. Everybody loves a badge for their LinkedIn profile. So those linking that type of recognition to learning, I think really helps. And what I am trying to empower my students to always be open, because when they go into the profession, it's this thing that we call on-the-job training. They're always going to be learning. So they can't just say, oh my goodness, I finished, I'm checking the box, I am done. That is not the case. And so I think platforms like LinkedIn Learning allows you to continue to learn in a kind of very focused, short burst. We were talking about time. Chunking is what is relevant in adult learning. So how can they pick up a skill even after they leave campus, insert it into their life, make sure it's applicable, but in those very focused, chunked kind of environments, I think that gives them the cadence that they're always learning, and it doesn't feel like they're always in a classroom. It's just a part of how they're gathering additional knowledge.
Now, John, Kecia mentioned certificate programs that there are a number of professionals and students interested in those. What kind of learning programs are in high demand among CPAs these days? Is it more still? I would imagine there's still an element of compliance, but is it starting to get a little bit more about competency?
Yeah, it's definitely you've got the mix. I mean, for the same reasons that Kecia mentioned, the CPAs who are out there, in their careers, still have to have the technical and compliance level of training. Tax folks have to need to know how to stay abreast of all the new tax programs that are out there and regulations. Auditors need to stay on top of what's going on with the FASB and the Accounting Standards Board and so on, and Yellow Book accounting. And then, of course, we all as CPAs have to have our ethics training. So that's still, when I look at all of our webinars, we have like 375 unique webinar topics we offer throughout a year, and those tax, accounting, auditing, and ethics are still the number one, attended sessions. On the other side of it, though, you have these niche competencies that people are, wanting to learn. And there's three that I can think of off the top of my head that really are in the forefront. In the world of public accounting, you have what they're calling CAS, Client Accounting Services, or sometimes CAS is the acronym. Sometimes CAS is also used to describe Client Advisory Services. And what that really is a service model for CPAs who provide client services. It's a new model for accounting where you deliver the accounting services through the cloud, through cloud-based applications, and you let the technology do the heavy lifting or the grunt work, maybe you look at it that way, the transaction processing, and you transition the accounting professional to be more of a client advisor. And so anything along those areas is really gaining a lot of traction. This client accounting, client advisory service is the fastest growing service revenue segment in CPA firms of all sizes today. So that's one. Kind of related to that is the whole area of data analytics and dashboard reporting. I call it KPI dashboard reporting, key performance indicators. I also refer to it as the new finance reporting model, where people just want to see a visual screen of information that they can point and click and click to drill through and see more detail. And so learning how to do that is a pretty good skill, whether you're a CPA working in public accounting or if you're a CFO or controller working inside a corporate organization, just to help those organizations transition the way they're reporting information out. The third is this whole area of digital assets and blockchain technology. And so that would be cryptocurrency, NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, DeFi, decentralized finance. I mean, the whole world of money is just changing before our eyes in terms of how it works. So there's a lot of interest. Those that I would say, Don, are the top three niche competencies that I see out there in the CPA learning market.
Okay. And that's a great transition to my next question for Kecia, and that's about upcoming changes to the CPA exam. The CPA exam, they're trying to update it in order to make it more current with the current profession. So Kecia, I mean, how do you see the upcoming changes to the CPA exam impacting education at the college level, but then also even impacting training and development for current CPAs?
Yeah, and I was listening to John, and I was just, you all can't see, but I'm just shaking my head because all of those trends are what we're having to adapt to in curriculum. And that is, curriculums for accounting programs, finance programs, you have, business schools, and then also for individuals. So this, again, major disruption, some people look at it like, oh my goodness, this is a challenge, but it is an opportunity. And so with the CPA evolution, it is allowing for a lot more immersion and a lot more conversation and evaluation around digital acumen. We really need what John was saying about dashboards. Well, when there's a visualization, do you understand what is coming out of that? And so that is the transition where CPA evolution is allowing us to step back and look at our curriculum and say, all right, what is really going to be relevant for those students as they go out into the profession? And so it is some upskilling of those curricula to really look at the concepts that we have fallen in love with for years and years. And, I'm a professor, so I understand it, but do we really need to focus on petty cash now? Kind of, sort of, but we really need to talk about some more current things. So I think CPA evolution is really allowing us to make sure that our curriculum is relevant, to make sure that it is transferable. So the skills that they really are being evaluated on, they really will use in practice. And we'll continue to see even after they leave the university environment, these are the things that they're going to continue to upskill on, because just because we know a technology today, guess what? There's somebody somewhere creating something different. And so it's really the concept of visualization, data aggregation, not so much the tool. And those are the things that we're trying to capture in the CPA evolution process of the exam. Also within education, even from a business school perspective, our accreditor has already infused some technology standards for business schools that want to be accredited. And so this is a wholesale mindset change about being adaptive to the market, making sure that we're upskilling the curriculum and the individuals so we can make sure that what we're sharing in the classroom is applicable, is relevant, and transferable.
It'll be interesting after the new version of the CPA exam is implemented, and I know we have a couple more years till that happens, but after those individuals, those new CPAs kind of come out and they start taking CPE of their own, it'll be interesting to see if there's any changes in what John was saying earlier about, naturally there's a gravitation towards the technical stuff, tax, certainly law and ethics because of the obligation there, but it'll be interesting to see if the types of courses that new CPAs take are different than the ones than a current CPA or a CPA from 5, 10, 15 years ago. Because I think there is going to be something to the fact that if you're studying all these different types of topics and areas of study for the exam, then it seems natural that you would continue to study those things once you became a professional. So that'll be interesting to study. But Kecia, you guys are doing great at leading me into my next question. It's like you saw them in advance or something.
We're clairvoyant, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, you said the magic word. You said upskilling. You said, that's become so essential for organizations today, especially in light of the Great Recession and retirements. John, let's start with you. What are the key considerations for getting upskilling right?
Oh, well, the main consideration is you better get it right, because in this world of the Great Resignation, you're going to lose your team members. And, so I think it kind of just goes back to business 101, business leadership 101. What is the company the organization has to have a vision and a strategy, and then identify, okay, so what are the initiatives we need to execute to achieve that strategy? And then someone's got to take the responsibility to work with the individuals to align where they're passionate with the initiatives that need to be executed in the company. Because the more you can, as an organization, get in touch with what people's passion is and align that with things that need to get done in the organization, that substantially reduces your risk of losing them again in this world of the Great Resignation. So I think it's and individuals want that. I mean, I'm not an HR specialist, but I know that they talk about money is important, of course, salary, but it's not always the most important. People want to feel like they're making a difference. And how you make a difference is if I know what the organization is trying to achieve and I know where my passions are, I'm going to develop those skills. And that way we're in alignment. Just go back to our example of the CPA firm who might want to get into this service of developing digital dashboards. Well, if they want to develop that service, then they just need to try to find in the organization who are the individuals that just seem to have an interest in developing those skills, and then make the investment, of course, in the education for them.
Kecia, how about you? What are the key considerations for getting upskilling right?
And I just want to echo and just say it a little bit differently than what John said. You have to start with the end in mind. What is your strategy? I think in the higher ed space, and I will give kudos to the leadership of my department, when we knew these technology standards were coming, we knew what the end goal was, that we needed to make sure that we had the skill set so that we can share that with our students. Well, we had to do kind of an assessment of where everybody was and what their interests were so that we can actually build a strategy. So we can't, use upskilling just saying, we're going to upskill and these are the 5 tools that we want you to upskill on. Not really. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to build a better dashboard? Are you trying to replace some routine transactions or routine processes that take so long when you're trying to aggregate data? Then you can actually build a strategy. But just to kind of say we're going to upskill on these 5 things because we heard it and it sounded cool, that is where upskilling can go wrong. And that's where people get frustrated. And yes, they will walk away. So really making sure you have a defined idea of what your end goal is. Is it really to automate some processes? Is it to better present your financial information? Is it to emerge into a new area? Start there, then assess your gaps, then get the right tools and training there. And I think sometimes people start not with the end in mind, they start with kind of in panic mode, we have to do something, but you want to be strategic even in upskilling because you want to make sure there's the right time and money and training investment so that you actually meet your desired outcome.
All right. Great insights. Kecia and John, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening and watching. The NJCPA partners with CPA Crossings to offer a wide selection of webinars and on-demand learning. See the list of programs at njcpa.org/events and get information about our new on-demand subscription package at njcpa.org/on-demand.